Imagine being stuck on an airplane where suddenly everyone starts getting sick. This is the story of Japan Airlines Flight 404 on an all-new episode of The Internet Says It's True. Welcome back to The Internet Says It's True, where every week we learn something that sounds made up but is really true, part of the WCBE podcast experience. My name is Michael Kent. This is episode 241. Thanks for tuning in, and thanks for listening to last week's episode about Peter Conover Haynes. That was our Memorial Day episode about a guy who fought in both the Civil War and World War I, like 50 years later, as an old dude. Later on in this episode, we've got a fan favorite. Jonathan Burns will be joining us from his cruise ship cabin in Alaska. That's exciting, so stay tuned for that. We've got a couple new visitors to welcome. Welcome Ashley and welcome Gary. Thank you so much for joining the Patreon. Your stickers are in the mail. Once again, you can join the Patreon by visiting patreon.com/Michael Kent. That's where you pay to join at any level, from $1 on up, and then you get bonuses like videos, early ad-free episodes, discounts on merch, and more. Patreon.com/Michael Kent is where you go to do that. But if you don't want to spend any money but like this show, please consider just opening up the Apple Podcast app, leaving a review. That's huge. It really does help me out, especially if you leave a rating plus some words for a review. That helps the algorithm when you do that. Of course, it costs nothing. This week's story, I can't stress this enough, is not for the weak-stomached. It's kind of a gross episode, but it's something that really happened back in 1975. Let's go back. To tell this story, we have to talk about something very small, very light, and often ignored unless you're about to need it desperately: the barf bag. If you've flown in an airplane, you probably know about that waxy white envelope in the seat back pocket. Most planes still have them, some don't, but most do, and there was a time, particularly from the 1960s through the 90s, when every seat on every commercial airline first started carrying motion sickness bags. It was like an air travel rite of passage to see them and for many to use them. The modern barf bag was patented in the 1940s by a guy named Gilmore Tex Tilton. Before that, sick passengers were handed cardboard containers or bizarrely small canvas bags that had to be cleaned and reused. Not so great. The paper version was cheap, disposable, and surprisingly collectible. Some airlines printed jokes or slogans on theirs. Delta once printed the question, "Feel better?" on theirs. There's even an online museum dedicated to barf bag design. But even in the worst turbulence, they were rarely used en masse. Air sickness is usually isolated, one person here, maybe another a few rows back. The story we're telling today isn't about motion sickness. It's about what happens when 344 people eat the same thing, and it turns out that thing should have never been on the plane in the first place. Let's set the scene. It's February 3rd, 1975. Japan Airlines Flight 404 is preparing to depart from Anchorage, Alaska, bound for Copenhagen. It's a Boeing 747-246B, and this leg is part of a longer journey that originated in Tokyo and was headed for Paris. On board were 344 passengers and 20 crew. Almost all of those passengers were part of a corporate group. Coca-Cola Japan had arranged an international trip for hundreds of their executives, salespeople, and family members. It was sort of a working vacation, a reward for high-performing employees. So this was not your average passenger list. These were business travelers, company people, and Japan Airlines wanted to make a good impression. In the 70s, Japan Airlines, JAL, was known for its elite service, immaculate uniforms, and meals that were better than average for the time. And with this being a high-profile group, they rolled out the best they had to offer. Shortly after takeoff, the flight attendants began serving a hot breakfast. The main dish was a ham and cheese omelet served with rolls, butter, and dessert. The trays were clean, the food looked great, the passengers ate and settled in for the long transatlantic flight. But then it started. First, 1 or 2 people asked for motion sickness bags, then 5, then 10, then entire rows of people. One witness later said it was like watching dominoes fall, one after another. Passengers began vomiting, shaking, clutching their stomachs. The plane was halfway to Europe when the scale of the outbreak became clear. Flight attendants were overwhelmed. Lavatories were full. Some passengers had collapsed in the aisles. Others were passed out in their seats. Diarrhea, vomiting, nausea, all at once. There was no panic, just a kind of stunned horror. Out of 344 passengers, 197 became violently ill. And this wasn't regular food poisoning, not the kind where you feel queasy and you get over it after a few hours. This was the kind where your body goes into full evacuation mode. Dozens of people were dehydrated before landing. Some were drifting in and out of consciousness. The only reason this didn't become an air disaster is because the flight crew ate different meals. Airline policy often has pilots eat different dishes from passengers as a safety precaution, and that policy likely saved every soul on board. Had the pilots been incapacitated by that same illness, it's possible the aircraft wouldn't have made it to Denmark. That's the miracle. When the plane landed in Copenhagen, it was met by emergency crews, ambulances, and medical personnel. But the airport wasn't prepared for this many sick people at once. The language barrier only made it worse. Most of the passengers spoke Japanese. The medical staff spoke Danish. So officials did something creative. They called in Japanese-speaking restaurant staff from local sushi and noodle shops to serve as emergency translators. One by one, passengers were triaged. 144 were hospitalized, and 30 were considered in critical condition. Some had to be carried off the aircraft. Others were taken straight to emergency rooms with fluids being administered on the tarmac. And still, nobody knew exactly what had caused it. We'll talk about the culprit after a break.
Hey, I'm Cliff Bumgardner.
And I'm Harrison Stewart.
If you're like us, you probably grew up watching the Discovery Channel classic, Mythbusters.
From rocket cars to chicken cannons, Mythbusters proved there's no question too big, too small, or too ridiculous to put to the test.
Now we're going back to rewatch the show from episode 1, and we want you to follow along. Join us as we revisit every single myth, moment, experiment, and explosion from throughout the show's legendary 14 seasons. Subscribe now so you don't miss one.
If you love listening to this podcast every week and you want to show your support, that would mean a great deal to me. You can do that by becoming a Patreon member. We've got members at all levels, whether you want to pledge $1 a month or $10 a month. Just think about the value that you receive from this show. And if you like the histories and the stories that you learn about or the jokes that you hear, and if you think that they're worth it, consider signing up. For that, you get every episode ad-free and a week early, access to bonuses like the unedited videos of the guest appearances, and 20% off all merchandise. You can sign up today at patreon.com/Michael Kent. That's patreon.com/Michael Kent. There was a time that humans used 100% organic products as healing balms and moisturizers for their skin. Well, I've partnered with an awesome company that wants to get back to those times. Fatco sells organic and responsibly made tallow-based skincare products. For centuries, humans used tallow in skin moisturizers and healing balms, but unfortunately, the topical application of these fats seemed to stop around the same time that animal fats stopped being considered part of a healthy diet. A lot of modern skincare products do more harm than good by stripping your skin of its natural oils. Let's change that. You can try them out now at fatco.com and get 15% off your order by using my promo code INTERNET. Go to theinternetsaysitstrue.com/deals for the link. When almost 200 people got violently ill on board the Japan Airlines flight, the airline immediately began an investigation. So did the U.S. Centers for Disease Control. Japan Airlines grounded certain routes, and in Alaska, health inspectors turned their attention to a company called International In-Flight Catering, a subsidiary of Japan Airlines that was responsible for preparing the food at Anchorage International Airport. This was the kitchen that had made the breakfast omelets. And when investigators looked into their practices, they were horrified. There were no proper health screenings for staff, no required glove use, and no protocols for reporting illness. Food was not stored according to modern cold chain standards. And then they discovered the source. And again, this is disgusting, so prepare your stomachs. One of the kitchen workers, a man who had been tasked with slicing the ham used in the omelets, had shown up to work with infected open sores on his fingers. Now, he had bandaged them, but he hadn't told his supervisor and no one asked. That alone might have been enough to cause contamination, but it was what happened next that made it deadly. After slicing the ham, it was left out for hours at a temperature where bacteria thrive, specifically Staphylococcus aureus, a common bacteria found on human skin and in wounds. Once introduced to the ham, it began to multiply rapidly. Now here's the science part. Staph bacteria produce enterotoxins, and those toxins are heat stable, meaning they're not destroyed by cooking or reheating. So even though the omelets were heated again in the galley ovens on the plane, the toxins remained fully active. It wasn't bacteria making people sick, it was the poison the bacteria had already released into the ham. The CDC confirmed this in their final report. It was one of the clearest documented causes of mass foodborne illness linked to a specific bacterial toxin. The mistake wasn't just one person's failure, it was a systemic breakdown. A worker came in sick, the kitchen let him prep food, that food wasn't cooled properly, and then it was loaded onto a plane where nobody could escape it. But the story doesn't end there. Shortly after the investigation began, Kenji Kuwabara, the head of International In-Flight Catering in Anchorage, took his own life. He left a note accepting full responsibility for what had happened. It's not clear whether he was pressured or whether the guilt was simply too much, but in Japanese corporate culture, particularly in the 1970s, honor and shame were serious business. To be publicly associated with a massive failure was a cultural weight few could bear. His death shook the airline world. In response, Japan Airlines completely overhauled its food safety protocols. Medical checks became mandatory for kitchen workers. Glove use was enforced. Cold storage requirements were raised. The entire in-flight catering industry took notice. Airlines around the world updated their standards. And despite the staggering number of sick passengers, miraculously no one died. That may be the biggest miracle of all. Nearly 200 people consumed a toxic meal. 144 of them ended up in the hospital, and everyone lived. Barely. It remains the worst food poisoning incident in commercial aviation history. And today, when you lift the foil lid off a steaming airplane meal, you're seeing the legacy of what happened on Flight 404. There are temperature logs, health screenings, entire safety checklists, all because one day in 1975, someone didn't report a few bandaged fingers, and the consequences flew across an ocean. The internet says it's true. It's time for the Yap Yap with me and a friend. Today, I'm talking with Jonathan Burns, favorite of the show. Jonathan, if you don't know, he's a triple threat. He's a comedian, he's a variety performer, also a semi-professional podcast guest, and I've been told he makes a killer grilled cheese sandwich. What is going on, buddy? You're in Alaska.
I am. Well, I'm on my way to Vancouver, and due to the modern marvels of satellite internet, I am here with you on the internet says it's true.
I love it. I love it. Thank you, Elon. All these ships on Starlink these days. Yeah. Yeah, man. How's the cruise been for you so far? What ship are you on?
I am on the Disney Wonder. So I left from Juneau, Alaska, and we went to Ketchikan, Alaska. We're on our way to Vancouver, and then I start the cruise again on the first half. Back to Vancouver, then see some glaciers, and then make my way to, I can't remember where. Skagway. All the hot spots. Skagway.
Yeah. Have you been to Ketchikan enough now that you no longer go and see the wood carving show and the totem museum and all the things?
I didn't. I had shows yesterday, so I actually didn't go. But it was also raining, and people didn't look like in the best of spirits. So I was like, I'm gonna work on my stuff here. But it is beautiful. It's just you just kind of forget how gorgeous Alaska is. Have you been? You've been, right?
Yeah, it's insane. Yeah. I've been, I've done the cruise thing, but also you and I have both done the Army bases way up in Fairbanks, and that's like a completely different country than where you're at right now. Like it doesn't even seem the same place, and it's amazing how barren a place can be. But down there where you are is absolutely beautiful. Like those coastal Alaskan cities are just incredible. You can't take a bad picture.
Totally. And one of my first shows I ever got flown for was to go to Anchorage, and I did street shows. I was doing performing at this outdoor market, and what I remember is everyone was very lovely. I had a great time, but I was doing a show and it started to pour down rain. So I'm like, oh well, thanks for coming, guys, and well, maybe we'll try the show again later. I'm putting my stuff away, and the audience just stayed there. No one moved. They were all locals,
Yeah.
and they were
That's
just
nothing.
like, no, this is summer, and we stay outside in the summer and enjoy enjoy the time we could be outside. So it was such a weird experience of just like, yeah, we're ready for this, and you're gonna keep doing your thing.
Yeah.
So
They're
by
like,
the
this
end, I
is
was
nothing.
completely soaked, and
This is enjoyment time. We're watching an act and we're going to stay outside and go hunt an elk after this. It's
exactly. And I sounded the horn, and the hunt was on.
love it. Love it.
You remember it differently than I do, but
I
that's all
guess.
right.
Do you can you tell me a true fact that you think there's little chance I've heard before?
Yes. The Do you know what the chainsaw was originally invented for?
Okay. No, I don't. And this has been brought up to me multiple times that I should look into it, but no one has told me straight out what it is. So I'm guessing it's something gross
Hmm,
or something surprising, but it's on my list of like future things to look into.
gotcha. It was for cutting wood. No, it was
Well,
actually.
what a downer.
Sorry, I mean I built it up too much. That's on me. No, originally the chainsaw was invented for to aid in childbirth.
Just, wait, what part of childbirth?
I guess I didn't look into it further beyond that salacious headline, but I think just let your imagination run wild.
Well, we're going to look this
And
up right
also,
now.
isn't that your job on the
Kind of.
internet? Says it's true.
Yes. No, it's the internet's job.
Okay.
Okay, so when I put the words "was the chainsaw," the second result was the chainsaw invented for childbirth? In 1785, Scottish doctors and obstetrician John Aitken and James Jeffrey improved on the symphysotomy method using a tool that later became known as the Atkins flexible chainsaw. The cutting device was specifically designed to make removing the woman's pelvic bone easier and less time consuming during childbirth. And they have a
Mm.
picture of one of those first things. It was a hand crank chainsaw.
Wow.
Oh, God.
Wow. We brought up Elon and chainsaws in one podcast.
Oh,
Look
this
at that.
podcast. Okay. Yeah. Well, okay. So, first of all, that's a winning answer. That's correct.
Oh, thank
But
you.
for the first question, we're going to play for a joke. So if
Sure.
you get it wrong, you got to tell me a joke. If you get it right, I'll tell you one. Rather than the
Mhm.
joke book, like we referred to last week, this week, I actually do have a joke. Question
Okay.
1. What happened on Japan Airlines Flight 404 in 1975? A. The aircraft was hijacked en route to Europe. B. A foodborne outbreak sickened over half the passengers. Or C. A mechanical failure forced an emergency landing. One of these is true. Hijacked, foodborne outbreak, mechanical failure, emergency landing.
And this is Japan Airlines.
Yeah, Flight 404. The year was 1975. It was from Anchorage, Alaska to Copenhagen, Denmark.
Wow, that's quite a distance.
Yeah,
Well, I am in Alaska, so this is the perfect question for me.
that's right.
I
That's why
and
I
I also
specifically had you. Not
man,
really.
I also I always like to make a pre-guess, so I study something, and I assumed this week's topic would be about the nouns for groups of animals.
Oh, yeah, groups of animals like a pod of whales.
Yes, exactly. So I studied up on those, so
Ah,
that was way
shoot.
off.
Sorry.
Um,
Sorry, yeah.
or like a prickle of porcupines.
Really? Prickle? You're
A
making that
prickle.
up. That's not real.
No, that's true. A rumba of rattlesnakes.
That one is definitely made up.
That's what I yell when I stub my toe.
Oh my God,
Rumba of rattlesnakes.
that's true.
Uh,
Holy cow.
But back to this week's topic. Okay, the Japan Airlines, they had to make an emergency landing.
The answer, believe it or not, Jonathan, Foodborne outbreak sickened over half the passengers. So get this. Almost 200 passengers fell ill to staphylococcus toxin contamination in the breakfast omelets. It's the worst food poisoning incident in commercial aviation history. They served these omelets mid-flight. It was a bunch of Japanese businessmen from the Coca-Cola company. They left from Tokyo, went to Anchorage. They were on their way to Paris. They had won this trip for being good employees. Everyone got food poisoning. Yeah, it was very bad. Not everyone. I mean, almost 200 of them. That's enough to overwhelm the staff. But, and they traced it back to the guys preparing the food, had a staph infection, open sore on his fingers. Gross.
Oh, no.
Really gross. But it did revolutionize the way they prepare airline food. And
I feel like they're still working on it, though.
Yeah,
aren't they?
Yeah. All
right?
of this
airline food.
That's what I was going to say.
What's the deal with airline food, guys?
This leads
they
us
don't
to the
serve
question:
it anymore.
What's the deal? What's the deal? Jerry Seinfeld claims he never has made that joke. He's never said the line "What's the deal?" with blah blah blah. He's like, I don't know why people. It just is a good story.
I never said what's the deal.
Here's a joke for you. Oh no, you owe me a joke because you got it wrong. But I'll give you my joke anyway.
Okay, let me hear.
Everyone,
you want me to go first?
No, I'll go.
First.
Everyone at the family reunion got food poisoning. Runs in the family.
Good. Cue sound effect.
That was it. Yeah.
All right. I was trying. I'm really bad at street jokes, so I don't know that many. But I was looking through my notes, and I found one that I wrote. What do they call the emergency auto club in Canada?
You broke up a little bit there. Say it again. The emergency what?
What do they call the emergency auto club in Canada?
What?
AAA. So there you go. That's I've never told that to anyone. So a little peek into the bad jokes in my notebook that don't make it to stage.
Okay, so for question 2, if you get this wrong, you have to tell that joke on stage during this cruise.
Oh no. All right.
If you get it right, you don't have to. That's the stage.
Okay. All right.
Which U.S. agency is primarily responsible for investigating in-flight foodborne illness? Is it A?
AAA. Oh, sorry. I'm sorry.
Is it the FAA, the Federal Aviation Administration, FAA? B is Center for Disease Control and Prevention, the CDC, or C, National Transportation Safety Board, NTSB. So it is the FAA, the CDC, or the NTSB that investigates in-flight foodborne illness?
NTSB.
The answer, CDC.
Go!
You gotta tell the joke on stage.
AAA.
What day are you on?
My shows are finished this week, but next week.
Next week, will you still be in Alaska?
I will.
Good. So you can do that joke
with a lot of Canadians.
Yeah, I was going to say you're going to Vancouver, or is it Vancouver this time, or is it the other one? What's the Victoria?
We start in Vancouver. Yeah.
Okay.
So
nice.
I will be there. Yeah.
When I did the Alaskan cruise, we did Victoria instead of Vancouver.
Victoria's great. I've been
like
there.
Victoria.
I performed there too.
Yeah.
I was there also for a street performing festival, and actually, the local street performers weren't happy that they brought in people from the outside. They were kind of upset at us.
Interesting.
Nothing that I did. I was invited.
Sure.
But apparently to the organization. And during one of my shows on like the lawn of that beautiful building.
Yeah. The Empress Hotel. Yeah.
Yes, I was performing on there. I was having a rough show, and this man dressed as the Gorton's fisherman came up and tried to take over my crowd and take over my show. And then I had to like kind of shoo him away, and I kind of worked on, he made it very difficult, but I got him away. And then the end of my show, I was street performing, and I was about to pass the hat, and right before I passed the hat, it started raining, like pouring buckets.
Yeah.
And the Gorton's fisherman guy came out of the woods and was like, "Yes, yeah, he had made it rain on me at the most inconvenient time, and I made no money.
And he was obviously prepared for the rain.
He was. I guess he knew something that I did not.
Did he ever
So.
come up to you and say sorry?
He's like, I'm here with AAA.
Oh boy, that's funny. I wish there was video of that, but some of these stories are best when there's not.
Yes, that's two shows where I got rained out with very different
yeah, that's right.
endings. Yes,
but the people in Victoria, did they stay, or like the Alaskans, or did they leave?
They no, everyone's scared. It was a bad rain. It was like everyone ran for their lives. Yeah.
Yeah. You get to a certain level of rain, nobody stands that except for the Gordon fisherman.
Yes, he was definitely ready, chewing on a fish stick.
Yeah. So quickly back to our answer. The CDC leads investigations into foodborne outbreaks on U.S. linked flights, often working in tandem with foreign health departments and airline safety divisions. This particular flight ended up being grounded in Copenhagen when it landed. All these people got sick, didn't take off for Paris like it was supposed to. Of course, there was no one to fly. 144 of them ended up in the hospital, and more than a dozen of them were in critical condition. So nobody died, though, which was amazing.
Wow.
Yeah. For question 3, we're playing for a sticker. It's 3 inches, it's orange, and it's sticky. And it says the internet says it's true. You, listeners, can get one of these by joining the Patreon. It's patreon.com/Michael Kent. And when you join, I mail you stickers, which is kind of cool. But that's not all you get. There's lots of fun stuff in there. So what aircraft introduced the concept of mass international air travel in the 1970s? 1970s, mass international air travel. Was it A, the Boeing 747, B, the Concorde, or C, the McDonnell Douglas DC-9?
I am going to say that it's the McDonnell Douglas DC-9.
The answer, the 747 from the Boeing Corporation.
That seemed too obvious.
Yes. It was also known as the Jumbo Jet. It revolutionized air travel by carrying hundreds of passengers on long-haul routes, including the aircraft used in this episode's story. It was a 747, which I'm sure you've seen your fair share of.
I have been on a lot.
Do you pay attention?
I usually fly by a bird. But like a lot of hawks, or a boil of hawks.
A boil. What was the
Sometimes
rumba?
An unkindness of ravens.
Now I knew that one. I know murder of crows and unkindness of raven. Unkindness of ravens, a great one, by the way.
It is good. Or a rookery of penguins.
I knew rookery, but not specifically for penguins. I just know that because I'm a birder, as you know. A rookery is where egrets and herons are born. Yes. Yeah. It's like a nest for babies.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So no sticker for you this week.
I'm already sticky enough.
Yeah, I guess so. Do you still have stickers printed?
I do. The ones we printed stickers 20 years ago. I still have some left.
Do the big name entertainment stickers? I still have some big name entertainment stickers somewhere.
I do have those, and then I have ones that have toilet seats with my name on it and an arrow going through it. And I handed it to someone one time, a mom, and she goes, "Is this a diarrhea joke?"
That's funny. For those of you listening, if you're not familiar, Jonathan does an act in which he contorts his body through a toilet seat. And on one of his cruise ship shows, he tries to do that a bunch of times. Like, what is it?
I do. I did it last night. The current world record is 9 times to pass through a toilet seat in 1 minute. And I did 11.
11 last night on the Disney
That's
Wonder.
Right. Take back the world record.
Now, do you have to pay for the guy from Guinness to go on the ship with you to certify that, or
no? I can send in all the information. I have.
There you go.
Yeah. So hopefully I'll be a Guinness World Record holder here,
I love it.
Which is definitely one of my lifelong goals. Last year I got into Ripley's Believe It or Not because of that ability, which is pretty exciting.
Did you really?
I did. So I'm in like the current Ripley's Believe It or Not. Me and it's inside of a toilet seat.
Now,
can you believe this guy makes a job with a toilet seat?
That's amazing.
That kind of stuff.
That's actually very cool. Now, does that mean like the museums too, or just the book?
I'm in the book. I don't know how far that goes, but
Yeah.
12-year-old boys are checking me out in the library.
Well, let's go back
Wait,
on that
wait,
one.
wait, wait.
Let's start
Sorry.
that
The
sentence
book.
over.
Checking the book.
Okay.
What would a group of 12-year-old boys be called?
Uh, a stickiness?
No, no.
I don't know.
A flutter of teenage tweens.
A
flutter of
riz of boys.
Man, that is sus.
An Epstein, I think, is what they call it.
Oh,
An Epstein of
we're
children.
way off topic.
Oh God, this episode just stop now. There's enough in this episode already for people to have turned it off if they haven't by now. There are a bunch of good reasons for them to stop listening. Question 4. This one, if you get it right, I get a souvenir from Alaska or Vancouver or whatever. No, I want Alaska.
Okay.
Souvenir from Alaska.
Yeah.
If you get it wrong. Sorry. If you get it wrong, you got to give me a souvenir from Alaska. If you get it right, I'll give you a souvenir from my basement.
Wow. Okay.
We got all kinds of stuff in here. Joke books
You're
and
getting
whatnot.
a full salmon.
I've got an entire plastic tub full of Testors brand model paint right here. It's right here.
Wow.
It's roughly 25 years old. It's probably congealed, but that just adds to the appeal. Because you have to peel the paint from the inside walls of the. All right.
Sticky.
Question 4. What is Staphylococcus aureus start over. Why is Staphylococcus aureus particularly dangerous in food handling? Is it A, because it produces heat-stable toxins, B, because it thrives only in cold storage, or C, because it requires animal-to-human contact? One of these is why it's particularly dangerous in food handling. Heat-stable toxins, meaning it doesn't, you can put it in an oven, it doesn't affect the toxins. B, it thrives only in cold storage, meaning, like when you put it in the fridge. Or C, it requires animal-to-human contact.
I'm going heat stable.
Heat stable is the winner. Unlike many foodborne pathogens, staph bacteria releases toxins that aren't destroyed by cooking, which means even reheated, contaminated food can make people sick once it's got staph in it. Gross. Gross. Which is what happened here. They cooked these ham omelets. They put them in the airport or the airline ovens, and didn't matter. Oh,
what's the deal? What's the deal with that?
What's the deal with staph infections?
Well, I'm glad I don't have to get you a salmon or a group of salmon known as a run of salmons.
Salmon run. I like that one. Salmon run feels like that's a good one. A run of salmon.
Yeah, some of these make sense. I feel like they I don't know who comes up with these, but like a business of ferrets.
That one just sounds. That's just lazy.
Business is ferret. Yeah.
The guy in the naming, he had an intern. He's like, "Hey, can you handle this ferrets naming business?" And the kid was like, "Done." I don't know. He said something about business. And I don't know.
I'm going to lunch. Yeah.
Yeah.
Meeting adjourned.
We're left with the ham sandwich of ferrets. Oh man, I went to the salmon hatchery in Sitka, Alaska, and that was cool. I learned a lot. I learned about the different lifespan of a salmon, where they swim. The older they get that more red, and they get that like crooked nose thing. They become a type of, I can't remember the name of it. It's a different type of salmon. Starts with a C. But yeah, I had never even considered any of that stuff. But I will say, in that museum, there was like a garage where the souvenir shop was, and they had a food stand with the best clam chowder I've ever had in my life. It had chorizo in it, and it was like a cold, rainy day, and on a cold, rainy day, I can still taste the clam chowder from Sitka, Alaska.
Wow. In Anchorage, I ate a salmon quesadilla that like blew my mind.
Ooh.
I was like, I never thought about that. And also halibut cheeks. Have you ever had halibut cheeks?
No.
That's next time you're in Alaska, I highly recommend halibut cheeks. They're like, it's the actual cheek muscle of a halibut, but they're like these fluffy fish, delightful balls of fishy, fluffy halibut.
Interesting. Did you know a group of clams is called a bed?
I did. It's almost like a swarm of bees. Yeah, weird that one.
That one I knew. What
How
about
about
halibut? It's a school.
How about an army of caterpillars?
Oh, is that true? An army of caterpillars?
That is.
That's a good one. Because they have
A
lots
hover of
because they have
trout.
lots of arms.
Exactly.
What was trout?
A hover.
It should be school. That's a fish.
I guess specific fish have different names.
Yeah, should be a school.
Or a rafter of turkeys.
A rafter? I don't get that.
A rafter. Yeah, rafter. It can also be a dole or
Damn
a
near
flock.
killed her.
A rafter.
Oh God. Okay. You're doing well. I think you're batting 500 for this episode.
Oh, there's more questions. I
There's
thought we
one
were
more.
wrapping up.
There's one more,
Holy
and then we
moly.
wrap up.
Stick with us, podcast listeners.
Question 5. If they have listeners, if you have made it this far, I am so proud of you. You have a stomach of iron and steel, because this has been a tough one to get through. If you, Jonathan Burns, were responsible for planning a reward trip for 300 people, where would you send them?
A group of 300 people, known as a parliament of people.
Parliament. That's a good one.
A group of 300 people, where would I send them? What's my feelings on these people?
They work for you. And
okay.
This is a reward trip. Like, you own Jonathan Burns Incorporated. These are your top performing employees.
Sure. Oh, wow. So okay. I am going to send them all to Fairbanks, Alaska.
Oh, really?
I just that's what's out my window right now. So it's not thinking of.
Oh,
I mean, I know. I think I was like, at first I've spent time in Paris. I was thinking there, but that's too many people for Paris. It's hard to do anything.
that's where the
with 300
people in our episode were headed, but they didn't make it. So it doesn't matter.
That's too many people. So if I had 300 people, I'm going to send them to Tortola, British Virgin Islands. Final answer.
Okay. Tortola, British Virgin Islands. Never been there. Is a nice place.
Beautiful. Yeah. Caribbean, nice, gorgeous.
Yeah. Last week's or 2 weeks ago, our episode was about the metric system. And it was around the Caribbean where the metric system was stolen by pirates.
Wow.
That's true.
Wow.
And I'm leaving it right there for the people who haven't listened to that episode yet, because that's a really nice teaser. If you go back and listen to episode,
I'm gonna go listen to that.
239. Wow. The metric system was stolen by pirates.
Oh,
and if it weren't for those pirates, we would be on the metric system in the U.S. today. True fact. That's true.
Wow. Inches instead of centimeters.
Inches instead of that's what we're stuck with. So tell people where they can learn about Jonathan Burns.
You can go to my fan page, iheartburns.com. That's iheartburns.com. Don't forget the I and the S. You go to heartburn.com. That's Tums. And you can find out where I'm at. I'm on a few cruises right now. Then I'm off to Paris for a few months. I'm working at the Crazy Horse in Paris again, and then I come back and I'm all around the U.S. and beyond. So hopefully see you out there.
Wonderful. Thanks so much for taking some time from your cruise ship cabin and joining us today, man.
Absolutely. Always a pleasure.
That's all for this week. Thank you so much to Jonathan Burns for being my guest, and thanks to you for listening. Here's the voice of a kid who threw up listening to this episode.
Thank you for listening to The Internet Says It's True. To listen to episodes ad-free and a week early, support us on Patreon. You can do that at patreon.com/Michael Kent. If you learned something just now that you didn't already know, go to the Apple Podcast app and leave us a review with 5 stars and a few words. That helps us a ton, because that's how the algorithm works. I don't know what an algorithm is, but just do it! See you next week for a brand new episode of The internet says it's true!
The Internet Says It's True would like to thank the Patreon subscribers whose monthly contributions help to make this show possible. Sean Brown, Joshua Endress, Dallas Ray, Bryce Swanson, Eugene Anderson, Jim and Joanne Martin, Mitch and Andrew Joseph Kemplin, and the show's official Emperor, Kick Track. The show is written and produced by me, Michael Kent. The theme song is by Finite Music Forge, and all audio clips in this episode are used for education and commentary and used under Fair Use Title 17 U.S.C. Section 107. You can listen to past episodes by searching for The Internet Says It's True wherever you get your podcasts, and you can see bonus content at patreon.com/Michael Kent.